Do I got to say it?
Of course.
Truth is truth, even if no one believes it. And
A lie is a lie, even if no one believes it.
something like that, yeah. All right. One second. All right. We've been going over
I was like,
oh, okay, sorry. Yeah, will the kids go downstairs with Sister Cynthia? Looks like it's just you today. Do we have any? Where are they all? I'm gonna blame Wilson. Can I do that? Are you guys all right with that? Can I blame him?
yes.
All right. We've been talking about why the truth is important, the importance of the truth. A couple answers that we've given so far are, one, it reveals what we really want. And another is, it reveals our blind spots. These are just a couple. Today we're going to answer that question, why the truth is so important. Because without it, we can't have true worship. We can't. Does God accept all kinds of worship?
No.
No, why not? Have you ever heard somebody say that, I don't need to go to church, I can worship God my way? Or I worship God in my own way. I do it. He knows my heart. It's okay. We're going to talk a little bit about why that's not okay. There's an illustration about worship. We were just talking about airplanes. Sorry, this may be too soon. Can an airplane fly without two wings? What happens if you lose a wing? It's not going to fly. Yeah, it's good. What if it loses both wings? And it's really going to go down, right? And this is a good analogy for worship. We see in this world, especially around this season, you see two types of thinking, where Jesus says we must worship in spirit and in truth. We see some who it's strictly about doing. It's all works. It's works-based salvation. So I go to service, I begrudgingly get out of bed, I'm like, oh great, I gotta go worship again. Gotta see those people. And on the other side, guys, it feels so good. The whole place is vibing. It makes me feel great. But is it the worship that God asked for? There are a lot of other things that feel great too that aren't good for us. So it's just this spectrum. Where are we supposed to be on this spectrum? We're supposed to be in the middle. But before we look on our main passage this morning, I just want to talk a little bit more about this concept of worship. Because we say, we're going to worship. Let's look at the definition really quick. What does worship even mean? It means I go to a church building on Sunday. Right? You guys in? Go on, talk to me. What does worship even mean? All right. You guys are being too quiet this morning, and I don't like it.
Church mouse.
The definition is, this is the English definition. The English definition to the word worship is to honor or show reverence for a divine being or supernatural power. So that's it, right? I have the right understanding of worship if I know this definition. Right? And that's kind of the thought process why it doesn't, a lot of times people don't think of this. When we look up words in the Bible, in the English language, we want to know what the author intended when he wrote it. And they didn't write in English, right? So we want to look up the words that were actually used by the biblical writers. So when it comes to worship, there's like 4, 5, 6 different words for worship, and they all have a different context to them. So when I say I'm going to go worship, what kind of worship? Right? Don't worry, today we're only going to look at 2. All right, we're not going to look at all 6. I know not everybody likes words. I love this stuff. This first word, and these 2 words here are probably the most relevant to us as Christians because it should be a part of our life. This one, proskuneo. This means to kiss the hand toward, which I'm sure that kind of sounds funny. This type of worship describes a specific intentional action. This is, I don't know what obeisance means, but to render reverence, to prostrate oneself. We all know what that means? So basically, I'm throwing myself at his feet, and that is an act of worship. And this doesn't mean literally, per se. There's an ancient, I was looking for this word study, and found out, I guess, the ancient Asian way of greeting a person of equal rank, right? You and I were equals, was to kiss the person on the lips. Sorry, Bill, I love you, but not like that. But when we see somebody of equal rank, that was the greeting, right? Now, when the difference of rank was slight, they'd kiss each other on the cheek. When one was far below the others, they'd fall upon their knees and touch their forehead to the ground. This was in Persian culture and other cultures in that area. But the difference in rank, it's how I greet you. It has to do more with you than me. And this latter mode of salutation, this kneeling down and putting our forehead to the ground because the person we're greeting is greater than we are, that's what this word proskuneo means. So we are putting ourselves at his absolute mercy, showing that we know he is far above us. The Lord's Supper is proskuneo, which goes to show the kind of attitude we should have when we approach Lord's Supper. Earl was talking and I kind of started to tear up because it made me think, look at all the times that God has sent judgment upon the earth. Just to try by any means, guys, wake up. Because we're stubborn. We get comfortable. We get in our routines and our rhythms, and sometimes all that can get us out of that is something traumatic. I don't know why we work that way, but it just made me think, knowing that I don't deserve the love, the forgiveness, the grace, the kindness that I've been shown, how do I treat him how I should, with the right amount of reverence? The next one is to serve. This means to serve, latruo, something like that. To serve or to render religious homage. So this describes a continual commitment and service. Right? The first one was a deliberate, intentional act. Right? Like the Lord's Supper. We do that for an intentional and a specific reason. We don't do that outside of service usually. But latruo is a continual commitment and service. What's interesting is it's translated in Matthew chapter 4, verse 10, this way. It says, "You shall worship the Lord your God and serve him only." But then we go to Romans 12:1, and it interprets it as worship. And it's the same word. So there's a connection between service and worship. Our service is worship. Romans says, therefore I exhort you, brothers, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies as a sacrifice, living, holy, and pleasing to God, which is your spiritual service of worship. Spiritual service of worship, I mean. So it's interesting how these different things, they kind of sum up what we're supposed to do in service and every day throughout the week. Because we know that there's that, how do I put it? We have the inclination a lot of times to go to service on Sunday, but then on Monday, it's like a switch went off. We go back to living a different life. But this kind of worship that we're commanded to worship, this is a daily thing. One thing that the Jews would do, there's something called it's a kind of offering. And they would light incense, and they would have to keep it lit. They would, switch out priests, and they would have to keep this lit. This could never go out, ever. Like, you light a candle, eventually it'll burn down, it'll go out. This, they could never allow it to go out. And this was symbolic of our service to Him. Just like that flame is to never die, we are to never stop living as worship to Him. So while these two styles of worship, they should be woven into our Christian life, these two styles of worship aren't restricted to Christianity. Right? So they're practiced in other religions. But when we direct our worship toward the one true God, the Lord Yahweh, there are two characteristics that need to be present in order to be pleasing and acceptable worship to Him. And we see that in this morning's text. If everybody will open up in their Bibles to John chapter 4. Unless I put you guys to sleep already.
Never.
How many of us are Christians? Raise your hands. Show of hands. How many of us are Christians? It's not a trick question, I promise. I'm not doing a sneak attack, I promise. So as Christians, do we believe that we worship Him in spirit and in truth? With how we understand it now, do we believe that we worship Him in spirit and in truth? Just wanted us to think about that before we read. John chapter 4, starting in verse 23. It says, but an hour is coming, and now is, when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and truth. Here's an interesting part here. Ready? For such people, the Father seeks to be His worshipers. God is spirit, and those who worship Him must worship in spirit and in truth. So in this chapter, a lot of times the focus is on the evangelism in this chapter, how He goes to the woman at the well. And this is when I'm going to use Wilson's word, I tend to be a little bit of a nerd with this, because I love the book of Kings. And it talks about the kingdom of Samaria, where the Samaritan woman was from, where this well was, where they were talking. This was the northern kingdom of Israel. Right? But way back when, they decided, all right, I'm going to worship God my way. They said, I know God said we're supposed to go to the temple, but it'll be okay because, it's closer. We could stay in the city. We'll put a temple here and a temple here. they put 2 statues of golden calves. Out of all things, why a golden calf? Like you didn't learn the first time? Right? I know we don't ever repeat the same mistake twice, so I'm, you know. But they put a place they can worship without having to go to Jerusalem. So for thousands of years, they worshiped falsely. They had a zeal for God. They loved Him, but they didn't worship Him the way that He told them to worship. So with that context, this is the conversation that Jesus, here's a Jew talking to a Samaritan. The southern kingdom believed that they were better than the Samaritans because they were mixed with other nations and they weren't looked at as pure. So they were looked at as like the lowest of the low. Wilson said it a couple weeks ago. One of the worst things you could call a Jew is a Samaritan. So Jesus purposely stops in this part of the region to talk to this woman. They were talking about literal water and living water, right? That's verses 1 to 15. But then their conversation turned to this centuries-old debate between the Jews and the Samaritans about the correct place to worship. The Samaritans had Mount Gerizim. I'm probably not pronouncing that right. And the Jews had Jerusalem. And Jesus' answer kind of shatters the typical Jewish and Samaritan understanding of worship. Everything that they've been taught is right. He comes along and says, nope, that's not it. Has that ever happened to us in our life? We're going about our lives and all of a sudden someone drops a bomb on us and it uproots everything that we once believed. At that point, we're given a choice. But anyway, I'm getting off track. But let's, so Jesus says, right, He redirects the focus from where we worship to how and who we worship. I know a lot of times there's a focus on like this building as if it is this sanctuary. A lot of places call their building a sanctuary. I thought Jesus said that He'd tear down the temple in 3 days and that our bodies would be the temple of God. Right? It's the same argument He's having here. Location, He's saying, does not matter anymore. You are or will be the church. The true worshipers will worship in spirit and in truth. So we're going to unpack these 2 ideas. If I go for too long, Nick, Adolphus, throw something at me. All right? I've got to set the stopwatch again. I said throw something at me. I didn't say kill me, Nick. Come on.
Nick is ready.
So, first, we'll start off with the spirit. To worship in spirit, this means to engage our innermost being, our heart, our mind, and our soul with God. And it's not about going through the motions or performing these external acts without a genuine internal connection and sincerity. Is our heart important when it comes to our worship to God? Come on, seriously? But I went to service. I even went to Bible study. What, that's not it? That's not enough? Oh man, this Christianity thing ain't what I thought it was. Our heart is important. In Psalm 15, will everybody turn to Psalm 15? I keep going to this psalm. This psalm talks about who can go to God's temple. Now, what is God's temple now? We are, right? Maybe? You guys sure? Yeah, we are the temple of God. You guys thought you were getting a Christmas sermon this morning, huh? That's why you're upset. I see. I get it now. All right, Psalm 15. O Lord, who may abide in your tent? Or who may dwell on your holy hill? talking about who can be at the temple, who can be in the holy place. Ready for this one? This one hurts. He who walks with integrity and works righteousness and speaks truth in his heart. So when it comes to our worship, it's important we're speaking truth in our heart. And when we do, we walk in integrity. Sometimes, I don't know about you guys, but, sometimes I don't like looking vulnerable. Right? I don't want people to know that I'm struggling. So you put on this external cover. I don't want people to see. They don't have to worry. I'll just smile when they ask me how I'm doing. I'll say I'm okay. That creates a heart that's out of whack. So now I create two people, basically. It's what the Bible calls hypocrite. Hippocrates it's basically being an actor. It's not as bad as it sounds. It's not what I'm trying to say, but we all do some acting sometimes, don't we? Whether it be for a good reason or not. As we're seeking our true purpose, sometimes it takes a little while to realize who we are in Christ. So we put on this external, whatever we want to call it, a mask. But when we worship God, we have to be true. Right? So what if I just slandered, gossiped about my brother? What if I just took somebody out in the street and just started kicking them for no reason? Then I come into worship service and I'm singing and I'm praying, Kumbaya. Is that acceptable worship to God? No. Because that worship isn't with a true heart. That's not with a pure heart. If I live one life out there and live a different life in front of everybody here, how is it possible for me to be pleasing to God? It's not. But that doesn't mean that we're far from redemption, that we're far from getting back into His good grace. No matter how many steps we take from Him, it's only one step to get back to Him. So that's the beautiful thing here. So the role of the heart in worship, worshiping in spirit. For one, it's authentic. We just talked about that. Two, it's heartfelt. So worship, in order to be real worship, you have to feel it. You guys get that? You guys okay with that? A lot of times this is how we'll judge whether this place is a good church or not. Well, I don't feel it anymore. I once felt it, but I don't anymore. That has to do with an internal issue. Because external doesn't affect my worship to God. So it has to do with an internal issue. But when we love our God, when we look at Him and we know what He has done for us, when He has taken somebody who failed in every single aspect of their life, picked them up, said, you are my child and I love you. Spiritually, each and every one of us was there. How can we not be heartfelt when we worship Him? When we recognize the love that we've been shown, the love that we've been given. So that's part of the role of the heart in worship. All right. Next, in truth. This brings us to this second component, in truth. Psalm 145 verse 18 says, the Lord is near to all who call upon Him, to all who call upon Him in truth. What do we think about that? So to worship in truth, this means that our worship is grounded in the reality of who God is. Not about what makes me feel good. Not about a warm, fuzzy feeling. But in the reality and the truth of who God is. It's based on accurate understanding of His character, His power, His love, and His plan. This is why when somebody says, hey, I had a dream last night and it told me that I was going to be a millionaire today. Can you let me borrow a few $1,000 today? I'll pay you back tomorrow. This is why things like that are ridiculous. Or God laid something upon my heart to tell you, don't give up. Oh, well, that's great. But that's not in accordance with the truth. God shows no partiality. So what God has to say to us has been written within this. So without truth, when it comes to our worship, we go wild. I've seen some worship that looks like a rock concert. Where in the history of God's people have you seen worship like that? But it feels good. Right? So that's the appeal. So first, it has to be biblical. When it comes to worshiping in truth, it has to be biblical. 2, it has to be sincere. Again, we talked about that. Truth in worship also implies honesty in our lives. So we cannot genuinely worship God while knowingly holding on to falsehood or living a deceptive life. What if, for a living, I lie all day, every day? I was thinking about this. Does it make it okay to lie if I'm saving somebody's life while doing it? What do you think? No? I was thinking about this. I watch a lot of cop shows. I was thinking about this. What about in a hostage situation? When they're trying to stall the guy who's in there, and they say, oh, yeah, we're going to get you everything that you want. Just hold on. And they try to stall until they have a plan to come in. That's to save lives. There's 30 hostages in there. Is that okay? Who said no? Wilson? You're right, sir. Really, you're right? Yeah, we have to be living in truth. It's either God is truth. So we can't pick and choose where we want to live in truth and where we're okay to live in lies and falsehood. It doesn't work that way. Do you understand why Jesus said, there will be many who say to me, Lord, Lord? Because there's so much deception out there that says you can worship Him however you want to worship Him, and He'll accept you with open arms. And He will. He accepts us when we have absolutely no understanding. When we have nothing. Doesn't matter who we are. But we have to submit to Him. And there's an example of this in Leviticus chapter 10. Leviticus chapter 10. It says, starting in verse 1, it says, Now Nadab and Abihu, the sons of Aaron, took their respective fire pans, and after putting fire in them, placed incense on it, and offered strange fire before the Lord, which He had not commanded them. And fire came out from the presence of the Lord and consumed them, and they died before the Lord. Then Moses said to Aaron, It is what the Lord spoke, saying, By those who come near me, I will be treated as holy, and before all the people I will be honored. So when we come to God with our own approach to worship, we are not honoring Him. Now, God's not going to throw a ball of fire down at us. I don't think, at least. Watch out, just in case. But this shows the seriousness of worship to Him. Right? He takes it seriously. So it says, going back to Gospel of John. It says, with these two things, in spirit, my heart is sincere, and I am genuine in presenting myself to the Lord. Do what you will with me, Lord. And in truth, Lord, I'm willing to change the ways that I've lived in order to be transformed through your way. All right. Going back to John chapter 4. All right, he says, an hour is coming, and now is, when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and in truth. How do we become a true worshiper? What do you guys think? I'm not going anywhere until I get an answer. What do we think? How do we become a true worshiper? Actions, yeah, that's part of it. Yeah. It's this thing I thought I heard somebody say, worship in spirit and in truth. Right? That's how we become true worshipers. And there's a little process that we can go through, a little 3-step process I have here. This is this week. In every moment of our lives, let us strive to be the true worshipers that the Father seeks. Because again, it says the Father seeks true worshipers. I thought I was the one who had to seek. Seek first the kingdom of God. He seeks us too. That's amazing. So in order to be the true worshipers that the Father seeks, number one, prepare our heart. Before we enter our worship service, take a minute to quiet our soul and keep in our minds the things that matter, why we're doing what we're doing. Why am I coming here? Number two, engage fully. Because now when I know what I'm doing here and I keep in mind why I worship God, we're to engage fully. Sing with understanding. Listen to the word preached with an open mind. Pray with genuine earnestness. And this last one is the most fun. Number 3, live consistently. Let your daily life be an extension of your worship. Living out the truths of God's word in your motives, your actions, your attitudes, and your relationships. You know, it takes a lot of effort to try to look like something we're not. It takes so much effort. But when we're true to ourselves, to everybody around us, to our God especially, life gets much better. So let us do all that we can to become true worshipers, to worship in spirit and in truth, with a heart that's here for the right reason, and a mind that seeks His truth above everything else. So it's at this time, if anybody is here and has not been baptized, that is the only way to enter into a relationship with God. Again, going back to in truth, God says you must be baptized. So if anybody would like to be baptized and enter the kingdom, enter the church, and put on Christ, I'd like to ask you to come down as we sing a song of invitation.